There have been some pretty important updates to the Destiny Bungie layoff story, including the fact that there was a major spin-off plan called Project Payback that has now been put on ice, and there's no Destiny 3 planned. Just the future of what we can expect from the Destiny franchise has been greatly reduced, and that is really unfortunate. Let's talk about everything that has sort of come out from ex-employees and what the future of this company is looking like for fans. So long story short, we're going to start with Jason Schreier, who says, just to clear up some rumors floating around, Destiny 3 was not canceled because it was never in development. Per people familiar, Bungie did some very early work on a spin-off project called Payback, but they canceled that a while ago. I'll have a story tomorrow with more info. And then Payback was a totally different spin-off project that was canceled a while before these layoffs. We're hearing more and more about the whole fallout from this entire situation where Bungie laid off 220 people and an additional 155 are getting folded into the larger PlayStation org. This comes after layoffs that took place in October. And obviously the whole content team right now over at Bungie is taking time to focus on the people who remain, those who have departed the company. It's a really depressing story to report on because Bungie is one of my favorites. And in my mind, leadership is where the blame falls when something falls this short. And I said as much in a public statement, calling out basically Pete Parsons, saying, I don't know how you go to work at this company where Pete Parsons, the leader who has now had to drastically reduce staff and who in the past has said, we want people to come to Bungie and do their best work. And yet they don't even know if they're going to be there for an entire calendar year because of poor decisions from management. Look, when you run a company and you're the CEO, the buck stops with you. That's just how it works. So if the company is failing, that's not necessarily even on the employees and on the infrastructure that you've built. It's on the negative 45% projections that were presented to Bungie, to Sony when they were being acquired. But more is coming out about like what would have happened if the company wasn't purchased by Sony. Stephen Totilo said the following: the cuts were not a sudden move. A sizable new round of layoffs has been planned by Bungie management for months before the launch of the studio's acclaimed Destiny 2 expansion, The Final Shape, this past June, two former Bungie employees told GameFile. And in addition to that, he also said that he spoke to some people about these budget cuts. And here's what was said. New, I spoke to ex-Bungie workers about yesterday's big cuts. This round was in the works prior to Final Shape. Feeling as Bungie bosses oversold studio to Sony. I've been saying that for years. You don't miss revenue by 45% and just think you're just going to get away scot-free like that. Not selling would have been worse. Source: the alternate history is insolvency. So basically, Bungie was in such dire straits that they had to sell. And a lot of the reaction about this has been, okay, so Bungie is purchased by Xbox, and Bungie's story is that it wasn't great under Xbox. Okay, so they go to Activision, and then the story is, oh, it wasn't great under Activision. And now they're under Sony, and it turns out, hey, maybe it was the leadership all along and not necessarily who owned them. It's just Bungie has a money problem. They don't seem to know how to budget their resources effectively, and they don't seem to know how to lead in a way that creates a sustainable environment for the development staff. And that is truly unfortunate. We've seen a ton of developers who are former Bungie employees, and they're all pointing their finger at one person, Pete Parsons. He's the CEO. Like I said, the buck stops with him, and it's understandable why people would be upset. And just real quick, after I recorded the video, apparently Destiny veterans Luke Smith and Mark Noseworthy have left Bungie. This is very shocking news. These two have been at the helm for most of the great expansions. Positive things have been said about them. Tocom basically confirmed as much, saying Luke and Mark were instrumental in every banger release we've ever had. That dynamic duo moved mountains for the game. For many of us, Luke was a friend and mentor who championed the game and hobby. Luke always wanted to make sure We honored the time folks spent in our world. This is really, really unfortunate news. And of course, Jeff Grubb also had a live stream. He talked about how the final shape did about the same or worse as Lightfall. I kind of covered that in the video. Bungie is apparently no longer independent under Sony or right on the cusp of being taken over by Sony. This was part of the agreement. If Bungie couldn't meet the expectations, then they would be taken over. Pete Parsons is not laid off. He is still there, and people are very unhappy about this. It seems this was largely at Pete's feet because he overpromised and underdelivered. There's been a lot of talk about his cars. I'm critical of Pete Parsons because of his failure as a leader. I don't care if rich people buy rich people things, but when you fail as a leader, you should be held accountable. And it seems like he is the only one not taking accountability for this. He should be gone, in my opinion, or step down or retire. Payback was the project led by Luke and Mark. That's gone. Luke and Mark are gone. It seems to be part of the restructuring. They saw the writing on the wall and just said, we're going to leave. 2 smaller experience packs are going to be like what Destiny is moving forward. The future of Destiny as we knew it is on hold. We're going to get these smaller 6-month experiences. Marathon needs to hit for them also. So if the smaller experiences hit and Marathon hits, then they're going to revisit Destiny 2 and how they improve it. This is from the same person who told Jeff Grubb, by the way, about the layoffs before they happened. A lot is riding on Marathon. This is the second time I've also heard this. And if a lot is riding on Marathon, I think Bungie is in even bigger trouble than what we're seeing today. They've been burning money. There's talks of studios that are being opened for no reason and then shut down. There's talks about condos that were set aside for leadership that were underutilized, or just more ways that they were burning money. You know, they spent $3.7 billion on Bungie, and $1 billion of that was set aside for retention of leadership, and they're all gone now. So back when this all happened, Michael Pachter said the following on a Yahoo interview. He said, and just to compare and contrast, EA bought Respawn about 3 or 4 years ago for $700 million with 400 developers, and those guys generate $700 million a year in revenue. Bungie does about $200 million in revenue. So I think Sony vastly overpaid. I think this was a statement that we're not going to let Microsoft get ahead of us, so we'll just buy something out of desperation. It's not really a deal that makes a whole lot of sense to me, and it doesn't make a lot of sense to Bungie either. Long story short, when Lightfall is your big win and it feels like a betrayal, it's going to be hard to get those players back. I'll cut back to the original video now. There's going to be more updates tomorrow, though, so I'm probably going to make a third video about this because Jason Schreier has also indicated that there is another story on the way. Destiny Bulletin is saying Bungie has reportedly canceled Destiny 3 Payback. Now, we've talked about how it's not an actual whole thing, but apparently it was a spinoff. Bungie basically had this side project in development, and here's what they say about it. Earlier this year, speculation ran high as a leak suggested that Bungie was working on a new Destiny game under the codename Payback. Fans eagerly anticipating the potential continuation of the popular series, hoping for new adventures and expansions within the Destiny universe. However, this excitement was met with disappointment as recent developments have cast a shadow over the project's future. Earlier this week, Bungie made headlines with the announcement of significant workforce reduction, laying off 17% of its staff, eliminating 17% of its staff. It wasn't even laying off. And unfortunately, you know, Jeff Grubb was talking about this today. We had this very interesting, hyped up Destiny 2 codename Frontiers. It looks like that's going on the Destiny spinoff is going on the shelf indefinitely. And here's what Grubb had to say. What's going on the shelf is Payback. That is what was also leaked and reported to be maybe Destiny 3, technically not Destiny 3. Internally, they would refer to it as the next Destiny. I don't know if the distinction is there, but they think there's a distinction there. But that is going on the shelf indefinitely, according to people I've talked to. Either way, let's be clear, a Destiny 3 or next Destiny is just not the thing that they are going to be coming out of this looking toward, let alone working on in any real way. Now, in the past several months, I pointed out a few days ago that Luke Smith, who had been celebrating the launch of, Destiny to the final shape, he has yet again completely wiped his profile. This is something he does regularly. It looks like Luke Smith at Bungie has completely erased all past tweets. However, I'm not sure this was already like this for today's announcement. And just back in June, he said, I'll open it in a new tab here. It's a final shape Eve, a thread. Hopefully it's an exciting time for you. And I know it is for the Destiny team. First and truly, thanks to all of you who have spent any time in Destiny since 2014's launch. It has for us and you been a long trip. And he would go on to congratulate the team. All those tweets are gone. He's kind of gone silent, obviously. Not feeling super happy about where things are currently. And honestly, who can blame him, really? I have to wonder if like his projects are getting shelved or what's going on there. But what's really concerning is what this means for the future of just the core Destiny experience, because what we're hearing is Destiny 2's future content drops to be lighter and smaller content packs instead of expansions, Insider reveals. Now, the most recent Destiny Echoes just wrapped up Act 2, and I gotta be honest with you, it's just not it. It's really light on content. It's really boring. They're going to just release the entire swath of content with their next episode or whatever they're calling it, so people are just going to tear through that in a week. I just don't know how by the end of Destiny 2's episodic content after the final shape, where we wind up with this franchise. It just seems like obviously it's a cash cow, and in their public statement they said that they're going to continue focusing on it, but I don't know what that looks like. Like, what does the future of this brand even look like? Bungie reportedly shifts Destiny 2 updates to lighter and smaller content packs instead of expansions. In the wake of the news, Jeff Grubb is basically saying that they're going to be referred to as content packs. According to Grubb, Bungie remains committed to supporting Destiny 2, but players should brace themselves for a shift in the scale of content updates. The future of Destiny 2 will see lighter and smaller content drops, a significant departure from the large expansions fans have come to expect, like the final shape. They're going to keep making new content for Destiny 2, Grubb shared during today's Game Mess mornings. When it comes to Destiny 2, the expectation internally is that the future content will be lighter, smaller, to take less time than what the final shape did and require fewer people. I require just as many of you as possible to hit that subscribe button, hit that bell. But as a longtime Destiny fan, this is just not what I want to hear, especially when they hype this up after final shape. It really does feel like final shape is it. Grubb elaborated further, stating, so there will be expansions and updates, but they will be sort of not a shell of their former selves, but they'll definitely have that vibe about them. Those expansions for Destiny 2, they are not even using that term internally anymore. They are calling them content packs. So that should put into perspective what you should expect from Destiny 2 going forward, Grubb said. They want Destiny 2 to keep being a thing, but the investment level is going to pare back in a significant way. Meanwhile, they think Marathon is actually coming out in 2025. There is very little hype for Marathon right now. I don't see anybody talking about it regularly. I don't see rumor videos coming out about Marathon. People are crickets about Marathon, and Paul Tassi had a few takes that I want to mention here also. I feel like Destiny 3 never being in development is actually worse. So the idea that they were going to do a spinoff and not have a Destiny 3 or Destiny 2 Frontiers, whatever that means. Frontiers, now the picture being painted is these small little content updates within the world of Destiny. And I I think we're sort of at the end of what this franchise is supposed to be. It was supposed to be a 10-year franchise. I think the final shape is a good send-off. And if that's the stopping point, they said that we would have more content, but now that we've seen what the end is, it certainly seems to me like the final shape is the final big expansion that we will ever have for this franchise. A lot of details in here, including that some Bungie sources are saying final shape sold less than Lightfall in the end. Lightfall was the big hyped up expansion that widely got panned because it just was a bad story and the gameplay loop wasn't particularly fun, but it sold better than the final shape. And unfortunately, that's how the cookie crumbles. When you set up expectations and people are hyped for this expansion and then it doesn't hit critically, and then your next expansion is great, you've lost the faith from the community though, because whatever happened with Lightfall happened, and it just did not hit the way it needed to. So that's the latest from Bungie. I'm very concerned about the future of this franchise. It's not particularly fun to look at the game right now because it just feels like it's over. It feels like the party's over with Destiny right now, yet again. And I'm fine with final shape being the big send-off, but that's what it is, and we'll go from there. Thanks for watching, everybody. Hit that subscribe button, hit that bell to know when my content goes live. I do appreciate it. Hit that like button if you're already subscribed. Thank you so much to the members. If you want to become a member, you can click that join button right down there where it says join. I do appreciate those of you who are members. If you want to see part 1 of this story to catch up on the official statements that were made and my reaction to it, you can do so right here. I'm going to get out of here, and I'll see you for the next one.